Formative early career experience in GEOINT is the focus of our first panel discussion today. This group of accomplished USGIF member Golden Ticket alumni, now in executive roles, will discuss how cultivating young talent fuels the future of national security. And I have the honor of moderating this panel discussion. So allow me to introduce its members. They are Michael Grochol, Chief Executive Officer of EagleX, a General Dynamics information technology company, and Dr. Shay Har-Noy, Chief Executive Officer of Edgybees. Let's give them a warm welcome. Woo! I have two former Golden Ticket winners, a program that we are very proud of here at USGIF that have risen to amazing success. And I'm going to call them young-ish professionals now, right? In very short order, you have risen to the top of the leadership ranks. So I'd like to ask each of you to give a brief introduction of you and your journey.
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm Michael Grochol. I'm the CEO of EagleX, soon to be moving out of that role and taking a role with GEIT, sort of senior leadership, managing a technology portfolio and investments going forward across all four divisions of GEIT. My background, joined the military right out of high school, did special operations, flew on AC-130 gunships, had a good amount of combat time in that role, then worked in the intelligence community for a little bit after I got out of the military, worked in acquisition for SOCOM for a minute, and through all of those experiences gained a lot of appreciation for how the government buys things, how they solve problems, and ultimately what the sort of bigger picture is to deliver to the national security mission. And on top of all that, loved it. And then really through the Golden Ticket program, I like to say that being part of that in 2011 was what really opened my eyes to the fact that there really was a community and a profession around delivering national security solutions. And had the opportunity to grow up through a few different small businesses and grow those companies and find myself in a few different leadership roles, including sitting on the board for USGIF for a couple of years. And then started a company a little over 6 years ago. And we grew that company to a pretty sizable amount over that 6-year period. And GDIT was making, a pretty significant investment in sort of their next generation for how they wanted to deliver, AI, machine learning, data type capabilities to the national security market, and made us an offer we couldn't refuse, and ultimately, ended up now in a position to hopefully lead sort of change in technology for them going forward. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Love it. Shay?
My name's Shay Har-Noy. I'm the CEO at Edgybees, where we aim to make small sats interchangeable with high-resolution satellites to have both high frequency and high resolution by improving their geospatial accuracy, making the data ready. My background, I have a technical background. I have a PhD in engineering. And it wasn't that long ago, though Ronda reminded me that it was actually quite a while ago. In 2012, I was sitting on stage similar to this one in Orlando at GEOINT, and I shared a story. I shared a story of my two buddies that were mountain climbing in Peru when they went missing. And at the time, we used digital globe and GeoEye satellites to help find their last tracks. GEOINT was not an industry I chose, it chose me. I had no choice. The power of the technology, of the data, of the people, of the tradecraft of what we're working on is next level. And at the time, I was screaming from the rooftops about making it more accessible. And I think between the different administrations at NGA and in the White House, we've done a pretty good job of doing that. the next challenges ahead are pretty substantial. So I was founder of a company called TomNod that was acquired by Digital Globe in 2013. I was an executive at Digital Globe through Maxar, responsible for all the AI investments, web distribution investments that they were making. I left Maxar to join Uber. So I was on Uber Maps, trying to understand what the commercial industry is doing. What are they smart about? What are they less smart about? And how do you merge together the best of breed from commercial as well as defense tech? After Uber, I was at Spire through their listing on the New York Stock Exchange, and then I got a call from Edgybees. Hey, we have some pretty hardcore technology that we think you can help us grow. And that's how I ended up to this point.
Wow, okay. Two very different and exceptional journeys in a nutshell. So let's talk about advice. So given your success, what advice would you give people in the audience about the future of the industry that either you were given that was really good for you, or that you wish you would have been given? Michael, would you start?
Yeah, so for me, I think the entire Golden Ticket program was really built off of an idea that a lot of senior leaders, 10, 15 years ago in NGA and in the IC recognized that they all knew each other for a really long period of time, right? That they had grown up in the industry with each other. And what those folks who started the program wanted to do was they wanted to create relationships between people that would become these career-long relationships. So we've known each other for almost 15 years. There's a whole group of people, when Carrie Drake and Alex Martinez and that initial group who started the Young Professional Group, we've all remained close friends over that period of time. And so for me, the advice that they gave that I think, in a good way, I think they would be proud we sort of took to the next level, was that these are the people that you are going to build relationships with. Because what I also noticed was that you had these very senior sort of captains of industry, CEOs of billion-dollar companies talking to, directors of intelligence agencies, but they had known each other for a really long time. They knew each other very well, and they trusted each other. So they could, call each other out and say, hey, I don't think you can actually deliver that solution, or I do think I can do this thing for you. And because they were able to have that long-standing relationship, it really made the industry better. And so I think for me, it's that, whether you're a young professional or someone who's been in the industry for a while, your ability to build a long-standing trusted relationship, in the soft community we call them habitual relationships with people, is going to be something that's really going to be able to drive your career forward, because people are going to be able to know that they can trust you and deliver on those things. So I think don't forget that building that sort of relationship through trust and time is an incredible part. Because, again, when you're a young professional, that is your disadvantage. You don't have the time and the experience, but it comes a little faster than you realize, and before you know it, you're like, wow, that GEOINT was 14 years ago. And so I think it's just invest in that.
Right, and invest in those 14 years, in every second. Some of the lessons that we try to impart with this Golden Ticket program each year is, don't waste a single second. When you get invited to a VIP event, even if you're tired, continue to interact, to continue to meet people, and grow your personal brand, and to learn from others. Shay, do you want to tie in the Golden Ticket program and your experiences with that?
Sure. I think the thing that I learned the most is that people matter. The thing I'm most proud of in my career isn't the line of code we wrote or that clever algorithm your team developed, but the fact that you all worked together, fighting like hell to make sure the mission was successful. And the thing I'm most proud of is where people I've worked with are now. So folks that I've worked with that worked on my teams, leading companies, on executive teams, leading missions, having a really big impact on the industry. And it was a realization I think I had. I was at Maxar. I had the strongest, most best team working together to solve the problems. And I remember we were sitting there. I was like, I would work, if the script were reversed, and maybe someday it will be, right? A different time, a different company. I would work for any one of these leaders. I would want to have them be my boss because there's so much that I've yet to learn from them. And that's really powerful, right? Where the team is about getting the highest functioning team working together on a common mission. I think nothing can stop you. And I think having that realization earlier, I think could have benefited me more, even though obviously we ended up getting it.
Awesome. All right, well, Shay, I want to stay with you for this one and turn to adapting technological advances. So can you tell us a little bit more about how advancements in technology, such as AI, machine learning, and cybersecurity, influence talent development strategies?
Sure. Our adversaries aren't using Fortran mainframes, right? As long as our adversaries are advancing their technological capabilities, and you better believe they are, we have to continue to adapt. And that means that the people that work on our teams need to come with a certain amount of expertise, as well as need to stay on top of the tradecraft. Not just the tradecraft, the technological advancements that aren't in our tradecraft. So having folks in your team that are tinkering with Gen AI. So it's not just the conventional SVMs to CNNs. Sorry, I'm getting geeky a little bit here. But also, like, what's the art of the possible with generative AI, and how does it apply to GEOINT? And tinkering, thinking about the art of the possible, and allowing people to continue to develop that expertise as well as that curiosity, I think, in what's available.
All right, and what are your feelings? Can you develop the expertise and just stop there and you're there, or are we in a continuous learning forever loop?
So I think we have to continue learning, but also I think one of the biggest challenges that we have as leaders is how do you adopt the latest technology? Not just how do you hack together a prototype. Prototypes are an important step. They're necessary but not sufficient in order to move the mission forward. And so that's a challenge for all these companies. And I think you have some thoughts on how these companies need to adapt to adopt these the latest cutting edge technologies and capabilities, right?
Yeah, I do. And, well, I would also say that with the advent of a lot of the ways that we're implementing AI, the security side of it is something that I think is going to be absolutely critical, and is maybe it's being talked about, but I don't think it's being talked about at the scale that it's going to need to happen. You're really going to have to be able to secure these applications in a way that's even much more different and much more secure than we currently secure software applications. And so I think that's going to play a huge role in it. And then to your point, I think it's creating a lot of disruption in the market. It's making things happen faster, but our ability to, get feeling for vibe coding for instance, and what are the security implications of, do I really know what happened in that code? Do I know what built it? What that system used to build the underlying code? Those types of things. We're building technology specifically around hunting for malicious code, understanding what's in libraries that are being built. So I do think that the stuff that's happening with Swift now and the way the government's moving away from the old risk management framework is really a necessary change that has to happen, because the securing of AI software is going to be as critical, if frankly not more critical, than the actual application that you build. We're going to build some really cool stuff, but it could be incredibly vulnerable if we don't really think about how we build it and how we secure it, once we deploy it onto these networks. If you don't know what's inside of that code because you just let something crawl a bunch of Git repositories and then build its own code, there could be some really big holes in there. And if I were an adversary, those are exactly the types of holes that I would be trying to create. And we know that that's what our adversary does. Like, if you look at the bigger hacks that have happened over these last several years, it is around the fact that they're placing breadcrumbs out there to create, doors that are open. So I think that's going to be a huge part of it, is the security side.
I think Ronda mentioned talent development. I think one of the interesting things is even in leadership roles, one of my favorite interview questions, if you ever submit a resume to a company I'm working at or leading, heads up. But one of my questions I like to ask of technology leaders is, where do you get your tech news from? And if you say from the tech section of the New York Times, it's the wrong answer, right? You want to hear people that are getting their hands dirty. Like, oh, I get it from Hacker News, right? I follow these 12 people on Twitter. Yes, that's the right answer, right? As far as knowing what vulnerabilities are before CNN puts it on as their headlines, right? But knowing what's to be expected and thinking about what's the art of the possible next.
Yep.
I think this is from junior coders, giving them room to write code and have hackathons, but also technology leaders and knowing what's next and getting their hands dirty. My claim to fame, if I may, Robert's backstage. He's going to be on stage, I think, in the next panel. Robert Cardillo, I got him to write Python code with me when he came and visited my team at Maxar. And he crushed it. He crushed it. And that's the level of insight and intimacy we need to have with technology and not be fearful of it, because it's not the technology group, it's not the IT group, it's all of us. It's the tools that are at our fingertips.
All right, so we need to be mindful of protecting our code, be mindful of the crumbs. What would you say are the top national security priorities, especially with regards to GEOINT today? And this is a pre-test because I'm going to ask Director Gabbard this in about an hour. So
Okay.
Let's hear from your technical stance. What are those top national priorities today from a geospatial intelligence perspective?
So I might have somewhat of a, I wouldn't say outside the box answer, but it's obviously an answer based off of my personal experiences. So I came from the special operations community, and in that community, GEOINT is a critical underlying enabler. And so I think how I always viewed GEOINT, were sitting in a room of geospatial experts who sort of eat and sleep that entire process. We always sort of looked at it from a different angle, which is ultimately it was the ultimate enabler in our ability to solve a particular problem. And so, it wasn't just about the map. It was about the 20 different ways that we would spatially or temporally visualize information to accomplish a mission. So, for me, I think that what this administration and what the nation writ large are looking for is, we're looking for outcomes. Right? And so from an outcome perspective, we are looking to be more competitive in certain ways on the world stage, or maintain our place, as a leader in certain places on the world stage. So I think what we're going to see is that as a nation, we have to clearly define what are those outcomes that we're looking for, right? I think it's clear that we've identified China as the pacing threat, the sort of near-peer type of environment. I think this administration has clearly made logistics, trade, and America's ability to remain a world superpower from an economic perspective as a key priority. So I think, and then obviously defense of the nation as another key underpinning, for us. And so I think those are the things that are going to drive the technologies that move forward, right? Does it make America more competitive in our ability to be, the world's leader, particularly economically? And so I think our ability to be strong from a national security perspective, our ability for the intelligence community to provide senior leaders the information so that they can continue to either create a lead, lengthen a lead, or put us back into first place in areas where we've been challenged economically, I think is where that is going, right? Again, it's give us information so that we can, win the race.
I think that the industry is paying attention to what's going on in areas of active conflict. I think we learned a lot in terms of what is going on in Ukraine over the last few years. One of our customers at Edgybees is the MOD within Israel, and where the active conflict there has a really, really high geographic component when you're responding to subterranean warfare and guerrilla tactics. And not only within your own borders and within Gaza, but also in the north and out east in neighboring countries. And they're using the best of breed tools, technology, to make the most of the data they have. So you better believe every satellite pass they're trying to get access to, whether it's their own satellites or anybody else's, and exploiting it to the last pixel. And that's what you do when you're in active conflict, because it saves lives on the ground. And I think people are paying attention to what's going on in these areas and learning from it. And if there is an active conflict being in another part of the world, being able to know how to respond to it, how to bring the best tools to it, and how to protect your soldiers.
This year, we've seen a lot of change. We've seen tumult, we've seen uncertainty, and the community has rallied. Where there's change, there's also opportunity. So what are some of the areas for growth, for opportunity that you see coming down the pike? And next level, part of the question is, what's like a wild idea that maybe you have now or you had in the past that it wasn't the right time for it, that we should consider today? Shay, I want to start with you.
Let me start off with a little bit of a soapbox, if I may. We're both leaders of small companies. And one of the challenge with the current environment is indecision. Forget about budget cuts. It's no budgets. Being unable to make decisions. That kills companies. It becomes really difficult when you're sitting on the sidelines to make a decision for 6 months. It's really hard. It's been really hard for us, and particularly in the US federal space. We're seeing acquisitions happen around the world at a much more rapid pace, and that's putting this country at a disadvantage. That said, the search for efficiency brings us to technological innovation, and not necessarily from incumbents, not necessarily from large companies or from existing programs. I see there being a really big opportunity and a necessity for the larger companies and larger programs to innovate, to bring new tools that are more efficient, that allow them to do more with the data that exists and with the rapidly increasing amount of data. I see there being a huge incentive for the adoption of automation in the workflows. And do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on something that there is, the chaos that exists right now is going to breed a significant amount of opportunity. We had chatted backstage about the fact that, in 2011, 2012, that time frame was when sequestration was really taking hold.
That was a scary time.
And it was a very scary time, but it also created a significant amount of opportunity. It actually was a huge reason why I was able to sort of be successful in business very early on, was because of the fact that it created sort of seams in the market. And I think this is also creating seams in the market. From my perspective, I see a really big market dynamic happening between sort of proprietary technology or maybe more closed loop capabilities and open source. So I think you're going to see, that's always been in the market, but I think we're seeing it at probably the strongest pull that we've seen in both directions right now from my perspective. And I think companies' ability to figure out where they fall in that and figure out how they can still add value to the mission. So while I do think that there's a lot of turmoil going on right now, in the end, the people where I talked about before, like it's gonna be an outcome-driven thing, it's going to be the people that can actually show that they're the solution to the problem. Now, what's also happening in the market, though, is, for instance, if you were previously doing work with DHS or Customs and Border Patrol, that's probably not who's going to be in charge of those particular things. That's probably Northcom now. that's in charge of a lot of those decisions that are being made. That's different elements that are supporting all the different national security priorities that are being put out by this administration. But that doesn't mean that the problem that you saw on the border doesn't exist. It just means that a different person is now in charge of that problem, which I think for most businesses should be a sign that, like, that's a fresh set of eyes, that's a fresh set of ears that wants to hear what a potential solution could be. So I think that's number one. I think it's going to create a new group of people who want to hear problems. And I also think right now, anyone who's paying attention, the government's not spending that much money right now, but they're going to have to. Like, the clock is ticking. And so you're going to see, in my opinion, over
the clock is ticking because the fiscal year.
Because the fiscal year is ending. And so the clock is ticking. So people who have real solutions to real problems that they can give legitimate certainty or near certainty to buyers that we can do this, and then you add the value that has happened with commercial solutions offerings and OTAs now, where you can put things on contract much faster than you could even a couple years ago. And how you do that, the SecDef released a memo that said that it is a must priority that CSOs and OTAs are the primary way to acquire technology through DoD. And I think you're going to see the IC continue to follow that as well. So again, there is a lot of opportunity. The people that can master that process and then can take advantage of it, I think are going to do incredibly well in this market. I think, again, it's going to be about solving the problem. Step one is convincing the decision makers that are going to be on the stage later today, the decision makers that walk around, the floor out there, that you have a solution that solves their problem. And then you have a path in which they can acquire it that sort of checks the blocks that the modern sort of world is looking for, right? And is built in a way that it's going to be resilient going forward. And that resiliency is your ability to implement things like AI, your ability to manage the cybersecurity associated to it, and your ability to have an organization that can sustain this type of change. I agree with you that it causes problems, but it also creates a lot of opportunities.
Well, you guys, I think you have ESP, right? Or ESPN?
ESPN.
Maybe?
ESPN, that's what we have.
ESPN. You've answered several of the questions that have come in from the audience, so thank you. All right, so I'd like to wrap up with a speed round. My teammates know that we were going to do one, but I didn't tell them what the questions would be, and we'll probably make them up as we go. So one-word answers if possible. All right, ready? All right, favorite leadership book?
The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz.
Okay.
Tribal Leadership was the book that I was given in 2011 by Keith Mosbach, and completely changed the way that I handled leadership going forward.
Awesome. Most valued mentor?
My sister.
Love that.
My brother.
Wow. Top skill you look for
Good
in
idea.
new hires?
I'm sorry, say that.
Willingness, top skills for new hires.
Okay.
Willingness to learn.
Yeah, resilience and willingness to learn, yeah. Just being able to just handle something that goes wrong and finding a path through.
Critical technology for future talent?
Coding.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, and maybe to get a little deeper, like the prompt engineering, understanding how to ask the machine information to get the right response.
All right. Please give them a big round of applause for a wonderful conversation.